Welcome to Books of the Month. I'm your host, Dr. Larry Carnes, and we're so excited that you could join us for today's broadcast. Listen, we have a very special guest with us. Fred, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine, Larry, and I've been looking forward to this all day.
We've been looking forward to having you with us also. Such a fascinating work that you've done. Introduce yourself to our viewing audience and tell them a little bit about this exciting book as we get into this interview.
Okay. My name is Fred Burniston, and I'm speaking to you from the UK. I've spent many years of my life studying the psychology of Dr. Carl Jung. And as Larry mentioned early, at the beginning of the century, Dr. Carl Jung collaborated with the great Sigmund Freud. And I will be talking about my relationship, particularly with Jung, not so much with Freud, and also about my book, which I will hold up here, and I hope you can see it. It's got a very stunning cover. It's called The Cunning Secret of the Wise, a response to the spirit of the times, and it's published by Great Writers Media. I will cut straight to the chase and tell you something remarkable that Jung said about God. He was interviewed on the BBC around 1959, 2 years before he died, and the interviewer, John Freeman, asked Jung if he believed in God. And Jung paused, he thought a moment, and then he said, "I don't need to believe, I know."
Wow.
And that is an extraordinary thing to say. And people had their reactions and wrote in indignant letters. How could this man possibly know? I just want to read you a little qualifier that Jung added later that explains what he meant by "I don't need to believe, I know."
Yes.
Very short. And what he says is, "To this day, God is the name by which I designate all things which cross my willful path violently and recklessly, all things which upset my subjective views, plans and intentions, and change the course of my life for better or worse."
Wow. So he acknowledged God. Here, this powerful man, the psychologist, but he acknowledged God and all that he did. So he merged the psychological with the spiritual.
Yes, Jung had a model of the human psyche that was like the light spectrum. And I'm thinking here of infrared, the ordinary light through which we're seeing each other now, and the ultraviolet. Now, infrared corresponds to the instinctual part of the psyche, red-blooded instinct.
Okay.
This is what Freud understood very well. He understood that our self-control, our rationality, is actually wafer thin, and we are driven by a seething cauldron of instinctual drives. And Freud found methods of trying to cope with the seething cauldron and help us deal with it more effectively.
Yes.
Jung recognized the infrared side completely, but he said that's not the only side of human nature. And he also recognized the ultraviolet spectrum. Now, violet is a very spiritual color. And Jung recognized that the psyche also possessed a capacity for transcendence.
Excellent.
And he reactivated and gave a psychological twist to a doctrine that I think you're probably very familiar with, Larry, and that is the idea that God has stamped his image on the soul of every human being.
Absolutely.
The Imago Dei.
Imago Dei.
Yeah. I'll give you another quote from Carl Jung. He said, "I thank God that I have been permitted to witness the Imago Dei within me. Had this not been so, I would have been a bitter enemy of religion and of Christianity in particular. Thanks to this act of grace, my life has meaning and my inner eye was open to the grandeur and beauty of dogma."
My. Now that's powerful because he speaks of an internal awareness of the Creator from a spiritual perspective.
Yes.
That's
Exactly.
powerful. You said something here that I thought was so very fascinating. You said that Carl Jung put the soul at the center of his psychology.
That is right. And that took incredible courage, Larry, because Jung was around in the 20th century. And the ruling paradigm of psychology then was behaviorism. And according to behaviorism, you are your behavior. Now, there's a lot of truth in behaviorism. I'm not in any way trying to knock it. Well, maybe I'll tell you a little joke. It'll bring it out. There's once a joke about two behaviorists who had sex together. And afterwards, the man said to the woman, "That was great for you. How was it for me?"
Ah.
So no inner life. Everything is on the outside. And what Jung tried to do was shift the balance. Now, that took incredible courage, because if you talk like that in the 20th century, you are considered to be a crank.
Yes, yes.
But he had the courage to stand up and say, the soul is at the center of my psychology. And he also believed that Western civilization had lost its soul. We suffer from loss of soul, and that is why we are sick. And in his therapeutic practice, he tried to connect the patient back to the soul.
My goodness.
And
internal healing, internal transformation.
Internal healing, yes.
Yes.
I'll give you a good example. Wolfgang Pauli was one of the founding fathers of quantum physics. He was so bright. When he was 24, he wrote an essay on relativity, and Einstein said it was the best paper he'd ever read. In 1930, Wolfgang Pauli was in deep trouble. His life was in meltdown. He was drinking heavily. And he went to Jung. And Jung simply told Pauli to dream.
My.
And you can read this sequence of dreams from Wolfgang Pauli. And what you see is a man who had previously been a militant atheist type, looking within and actually paying attention to his soul life.
My.
And this is quite extraordinary. And the whole dream sequence culminates in a vision that Pauli had of the harmony of the universe. He said it gave him a feeling of sublime harmony.
So this eloquent book that you've written, Fred, is going to give people insights and a whole different perspective to where we may have, from the spirit of our mind, closed off a certain part.
That's right. Jung opens it up. But I think I better add a caveat, Larry, and that is I think I can say without boasting that I write in a very clear style.
Yes, it's powerful. You said something here. Now, we have a couple of minutes. Watch this.
Yeah.
Talk to us about this great experience where he began to have relationship with this Muslim. And then they began to dialogue and open up a whole new dimension of awareness.
And what I've done in the book is I have tried to build a bridge between Jung and this great Muslim saint and mystic called Ibn Arabi. And in the last 3 chapters of the book, this was very difficult. I really had to work hard to do this. I've shown how Jung and Ibn Arabi share so much in common. And it's too much to go into now. And Ibn Arabi is a formidably difficult thinker. But this brings me to my warning that this book is not an easy read.
Yes.
It does require some work. I do, in the first chapter, give an introduction to Jung's basic ideas. So if the reader's new to it, read the chapter. You might find it very strange at first. Leave it a little bit of time. You may have some dreams to help you. And then come back to it. And what you can do, you don't have to read this book from cover to cover. You can go into any chapter because the chapters are self-contained. So find a chapter where you feel comfortable start with that. Don't worry about the other chapters. Everything there will be explained. And take time on this book. It doesn't matter if it takes 5 years to read. It took me 40 years to write. So don't worry if it doesn't make sense in a week. So it is not an easy read, but I think from the conversation we've had, Larry, you can see that there's some rewards there.
It is fascinating. A dialogue between Jung, and you talk about the bridge between Islam and the West being provided. You say my book ends with such a dialogue between the Muslim scholar and yourself. So you had a dialogue with a Muslim scholar.
I had a dialogue with a Muslim scholar called Samir Mahmood. And at the end of the book, you can read the dialogue that Samir and I had. And the dialogue was about Jung, Wolfgang Pauli, and the great Shaykh ibn Arabi.
Wow, that's
how the book
is fascinating. 60 seconds. Share how our audience can get in touch with you, website, email, and how they can get your books.
Okay, you can get, my book is available from Barnes and Nobles, and it's published by Great Writers Media. There is another edition by Ex Libris. That's fine, but there are some typos in the Ex Libris editions. The Great Writers edition, I've managed to edit more. Barnes and Noble will certainly have it. You go on the internet for Cunning Secret. I don't have a website, but if any of your listeners would like to contact me, I'd be certainly happy to answer their emails. Larry, would it be possible for them to send emails to you and then you send them back to me? I'm a little uneasy about giving it out online, on the air, as it were.
Well, I don't know. That would probably have to come through like maybe the publishing company or something.
Okay, in which case, go to Great Writers Media and I will speak to them and make sure that they forward your email to me.
Excellent. Fred,
do my best to answer your questions.
Thank you so much for being with us. I mean, so much wealth, a wealth of knowledge. We want to thank you for being our guest today here on Books of the Month.
It's been a pleasure, Larry.
Audience, we thank you for joining us. Remember, continue to tune in to Books of the Month. I'm your host, Dr. Larry Carnes, and we thank you so much.
Thank you, Larry.
Want to save money on your next flight? Then pick up the phone and call, because the best prices are not online. See, SmartFares has special deals with the airlines. When they have unsold seats, they use SmartFares to fill them. So you get airline tickets at ridiculously low prices. With the extra money you'll save, you can book another trip or treat yourself to dinner. Call today and get the best price on your next flight, guaranteed. Also, save up to 50% off business and first class tickets.